I now call Mr David Linden.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. It has been several weeks since we learned of the proposal put forward by Pladis, the company behind the McVitie's biscuit brand, to close its long-standing factory in my Glasgow East constituency. In that time, I've raised the matter at every opportunity, both outside of and on the floor of this House. This evening's debate, however, gives me much more time to expand on the situation, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr Speaker for very graciously allowing me to hold this adjournment debate. As you can probably understand, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm currently battling laryngitis, but nothing and no one would hold me back from being in this House to represent my constituents tonight. That said, I know that should my voice give way, my honourable friend, the member for Paisley and Renfrewshire North, might want to make some of the points on my behalf, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. But Mr Deputy Speaker, before I begin my speech, I wish to remember Andy Miller, a long-serving employee of the McVitie's factory in Tollcross, who recently died. Andy had worked at the factory for 37 years, his entire adult working life. His dedication and loyalty to McVitie's was undeniable, and I want to extend my heartfelt condolences to his family, his friends and his colleagues. I also want to thank the Minister for taking the time to listen to what I have this evening, because this isn't just a factory closure, not for me, not for the workers at the factory, nor for my constituents. Now, I'll come on to talk more about the history of the Tollcross site, but suffice it to say that having been in operation for almost a century, McVitie's is firmly embedded in the DNA of the East End of Glasgow. I recently attended the socially distanced rally at Tollcross Park, which was organised by the GMB trade union, where hundreds of McVitie's employees and their families had gathered to protest against the closure of the factory. Mr Deputy Speaker, one image that stuck in my head is of a young girl holding a handmade sign that read, "Save our mums and dads' jobs." Now, I want to provide the Minister with some context here, because for many kids in the area, their household income either comes largely or completely from the factory. I know from speaking with factory staff that there are a large number of households where either the sole breadwinner or indeed both parents work at the factory, and in many instances there will be a huge impact on the extended family network. Employment at the factory is intergenerational, and there were kids at that protest who will not only have parents, but aunts and uncles and grandparents all working there simultaneously. And this is the crux of the issue. There is no exaggeration when I say that the closure of Tollcross McVitie's factory would be devastating for the local community. Now, I've said before in this chamber that the closure would be the equivalent to economic Armageddon for the East End, and I truly mean it. And with a shared history as rich and as vibrant as that of McVitie's at Tollcross, it would be impossible for the company to turn its back with no consequences. McVitie's has become synonymous with Scotland. The UK's biggest biscuit brand has had a presence in Scotland since 1830, born out of the bakery in Rose Street in Edinburgh. The factory in Tollcross was built almost 100 years later, where it has operated continually to the present day. Now, I've visited the factory many times, and it's a building with an incredible amount of history shared and recounted by the proud workforce. I've lost count of the number of people who have told me colourful stories of their parents, grandparents and great-grandparents who've worked there. It is those generations of families in the East End of Glasgow who have helped propel the McVitie's brand to its contemporary dominance over the domestic biscuit market. Now, I believe that a huge part of that success, and the reason that McVitie's currently outsells the next 7 biggest biscuit brands combined, is that the business is very much a family business. This proposal, however, changes all of that. The McVitie's brand stands on the shoulders of its dedicated Tollcross workforce. Generations of families past and present. Today's workforce does not deserve to be abandoned, and I don't use that word lightly, but that is exactly what Pladis would be doing, abandoning its loyal employees. Over the past 15 months, the world has been turned upside down. Yet right throughout this pandemic, the workers at the factory continue to serve McVitie's diligently as key workers. The Tollcross factory workers come into work day in, day out, whilst millions of others worked safely from home. They did so to keep the UK fed. And how were the Tollcross factory employees rewarded for being key workers during the pandemic, contributing to a, quote, bumper sales year for McVitie's, with the threat of closure and redundancies? Now, I've already made my feelings abundantly clear to David Murray, the Managing Director of Pladis UK and Ireland, about how the staff were treated, but saying that it is a complete kick in the teeth would be a huge understatement. It was the dedication of the workforce at Tollcross that helped McVitie's to record record high sales throughout 2020, a dedication that has been met with cold and callous thanklessness. In their annual biscuit review, Pladis outlined their successes during 2020. The report highlights that Britain's biscuit market drew 7.2% last year, equivalent to an extra £212 million in sales. UK biscuit retail sales were worth £2.96 billion throughout 2020 and bought by 99.5% of all households across the UK. By way of rationale behind the proposed closure, Pladis insists that the UK business market is mature, yet in the report, Scott Snell, the Vice President of Customer at Pladis, states, and I quote, "As the number one biscuit supplier since almost a quarter of Pladis biscuits, 24.6%, are Pladis brands, we believe there is yet more growth to be tapped into." So I do not believe that the rhetoric is matched with reality. The stated reasoning behind axing 468 jobs and the complete abandonment of Scotland is weak, to say the least. And I can see that, the trade unions can see that, and the workers, most importantly the workers at the Tollcross factory can see that. And that is why we are not giving in without a fight. The local community, employees at the factory, trade unions, local elected representatives, Clyde Gateway, Scottish Enterprise, Glasgow City Council and the Scottish Government have rallied to the cause and are working hard to prevent the closure. And I want to put party politics and indeed constitutional politics aside and place on record my thanks to the UK Government for working with me to play its part in the efforts to keep the factory in the East End of Glasgow. Whether it's with the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, the Scotland Office, indeed my honourable friend from Milton Keynes is on the bench tonight, or indeed the Prime Minister himself, I have found genuine willingness to work constructively together across traditional party and constitutional lines to save these jobs in my constituency. The campaign, though, is fundamentally a grassroots one. A petition organised by workers at the factory is currently sitting at over 64,100 signatures, and at this juncture I really want to pay tribute to Paul Smith, who works at the factory. In addition, on behalf of my Glasgow East constituents, I presented a petition in this chamber where I outlined their concerns and the public opposition to the proposed closure. Hundreds of factory workers and their families attended a rally protesting against the factory closure organised by GMB, who have also been working incredibly hard to protect these local jobs, as have Unite. Glasgow City Council passed an emergency motion which was brought forward by my SNP colleague and Shettleston Ward Councillor Laura Docherty. The unanimous passing of this motion gave the full support of all party groups to the leader of the council to take all appropriate steps to assist in preventing the loss of these jobs and to explore ways to secure a sustainable future for the site. That motion also allowed the formation of an action group chaired by the Scottish Government's Cabinet Secretary for Finance and the Economy, Kate Forbes, and indeed Councillor Aitken. The group has brought together representatives, officials, trade union reps and stakeholders to encourage an open dialogue with Pladis and ultimately to try and find a solution, any solution, to try and keep the Tollcross factory open. But Mr Deputy Speaker, despite this enormous collective effort, last Friday Pladis officially issued their HR1 notice, signalling advance notification of potential redundancies. The 45-day consultation process began on Friday, and over the weekend the worst fears of hundreds of families became a reality. And at this juncture, my thoughts are very much with the families and the factory workers who now face an incredibly uncertain time. I think it's far too often that we lose sight, even in this House, of the fact that people are worrying about how they'll pay their car loan, how they'll pay their rent and how they'll pay their mortgage. And I do not believe that the factory closure is a foregone conclusion, though, and I will continue to work around the clock to play my part in finding a solution. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, I know that David Murray and other senior Pladis executives will be watching this debate intently this evening. Indeed, they spend an absolute fortune on PR and spin, and so as a result all the lobbyists will be watching this debate. But on behalf of the trade unions and the staff at the factory, I want to say this directly to David Murray and Salman Amin. The proposal to close the factory cannot go ahead. It would completely devastate the local area and create an economic scar that would remain for many, many years to come. So my message to David Murray is clear. Your staff do not deserve to be treated with contempt. They have been instrumental in your success. Their parents and their grandparents built your business. And yes, to you this isn't a business, but to us this is deeply personal. The McVitie's brand is cherished because of its history, not in spite of it. McVitie's is as much a part of the East End of Glasgow as we are a part of it, so please work with us. Please engage with the action group. Listen to the reasonable propositions being put forward. Have the good sense to change course and continue our mutual success. Mr Deputy Speaker, there is a genuine and collective will to prevent the factory being shuttered and to protect local jobs. And I will continue to play my part, and I look forward to the Minister's response this evening.
And I'd like to congratulate Mr Linden, who I know is battling laryngitis, for completing the speech. His voice was heard loud and clear. I don't know whether it's the biscuits or something in the whiskey or the water. I don't know. All together. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to add my congratulations for the Honourable Member for Glasgow East for securing and indeed completing today's important debate. And I had feared that we were going to have one of Parliament's historically longest interventions by the Honourable Member for Paisley and Renfrewshire, should that not have been the case. But as Mr Deputy Speaker has said, we are here to be the voice of our constituents, and I'm glad his voice is being heard in full volume here today for bringing this really important issue to the attention of the House. I'd also like to pay tribute to the Honourable Member and for Kate Forbes, the Scottish Government Cabinet Secretary for Finance and Economy, for all the work that they're doing with Susan Aitken, the leader of the Glasgow City Council, the unions and other agencies to secure a positive outcome for the site and its 468 employees. And I know their message will be heard loud and clear today. And I too would also like to join the Honourable Member by remembering Andy Miller. I'd like to pay my sincere condolences to his family, friends and colleagues. It's such a reminder of the human nature of these issues. These decisions are not taken on a spreadsheet. They are at human cost. They are so important that we remember what is at stake here. And unfortunately, the stakes are incredibly high, and I pay tribute to Andy Miller. Of course, it is these employees and their families who really are so central to the debate, and we must continue to focus our efforts on them to secure a positive future. It's the employees, as we've heard, who have made the McVitie's brand so successful, some of whom belong to families who have worked at the Tollcross family going back generations, and they should rightly be proud to be part of its century-long history, making the famous biscuits that have been household names in Britain for decades, that are enjoyed by people all over the world. The petition to which the Honourable Member referred, which has attracted more than 54,000 signatures, demonstrate this is a widely held view. I pay tribute, therefore, to the workers who continue to work through the pandemic, like many other factory workers, to ensure that the nation could continue to enjoy their favourite products. And so I sympathise with all those who will be affected by the company's decision to close the Tollcross site factory, which is so important to the local community and the wider local economy. And I say to them that we will do all we can, working with the Scottish Government, to ensure that they can access the support that they need. I'm sure the Honourable Member for Glasgow East will appreciate that while we're disappointed with that Pladis has taken this decision and has issued the redundancy notice, this is a commercial decision for the company. So although the government has no strategic role in the strategic direction or management of private companies, we do stand ready to support anyone affected by the redundancies. Yes,
thank you, Mr Deputy. I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way. I hadn't given an indication that I would be intervening on him. Can I ask what the Government have done thus far? I take him at his word and his sincerity on the issue, but when I secured the debate on Rolls-Royce and in Shannon and the hundreds of jobs that were going to go there, the Minister said at that point, essentially the workers should be grateful they've been offered voluntary redundancy. So can he tell us, and particularly the Member for Glasgow East and the workers at Tollcross, what the Government are actually doing about it? Thank you.
honourable gentleman. Yes, I'll outline a few of the issues there that my colleagues in the Department of Work and Pensions will be standing up as a result. And because I do recognise this is a worrying time for those Pladis employees, and we will do all that can do to support each of the workers affected, including, as I say, through the Department of Work and Pensions, the Job Centre Plus, and the support that they're able to access through the Partnership Action for Continuing Employment in Scotland. People will also be able to access redundancy help and job search advice through the Department of Work and Pensions Job Help campaign website. There's also information on gov.uk and updated information packs provided to employers to help them signpost employees to the support that's available. And that sort of support includes connecting people to jobs in the local labour market, help with job searches, including CV writing, interview skills, where to find jobs and how to apply for them, and help to identify transferable skills and skills gaps that are linked to the local labour market, along with advice on what benefits they may get and how to claim. Additionally, the government's plan for jobs is helping support businesses to recover from the pandemic and create more jobs with measures such as VAT cuts, business rates relief and cash grants for the most affected sectors. I'll happily give way.
Grateful to the Minister for giving way, and I as much as anybody in this House, by virtue of being a shadow, take an interest in the role of the Department for Work and Pensions. But there is another department in this government that has a crucial role to play, and I know this is a point that I discussed with the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State, and that is the Foreign Office. Pladis is, of course, a Turkish-owned company. So can the Minister give a commitment at the dispatch box that every single bit of machinery in the UK government, including that of Her Majesty's Foreign Office, will be engaged to try and put as much pressure on the Turkish owner, Salma Amin, to make sure that they do not take this decision that would lead to work for the Department of Work and Pensions, but instead indeed use that Global Britain brand that I'm not perhaps as much a fan of, but if the Global Britain brand is being taken at its word, will that pressure be brought to bear on Salma Amin in Turkey?
I thank the honourable gentleman, and I think in terms of that, as I said, it's frustrating because it is a commercial decision clearly for Pladis, for the company, but we do want to make sure that we can work with Pladis and other companies to keep investment within the UK, to indeed increase investment within the UK, to show the opportunities, and indeed should that factory there end up closing, that perhaps it may be repurposed for other areas of productive work that can actually re-engage that workforce. And these are conversations that I'm sure will continue with, as I say, in partnership from government, the Scottish Government, and indeed the honourable gentleman unions and other agencies in the local area. Let me just turn to a slightly wider point, because I know how important manufacturing is to the local area, to Scotland, and indeed the whole of Britain. As the largest of the manufacturing sectors, food and beverage manufacturing contributed £31 billion of gross value added to the UK economy in 2019, and directly employed more than 450,000 people across every region of the UK. It provided £4.8 billion to Scotland's economy in 2019. So the importance of manufacturing to Scotland's industrial history is so well known. And today, Scotland has a high-tech and high-value offer in other areas as well, leading sectors such as space, aerospace, defence, marine and life sciences. Manufacturing is so often the economic anchor in local communities, providing good jobs, and the Tollcross site is absolutely no exception. So we must work together so that Glasgow and other local areas in Scotland continue to provide an attractive offer to manufacturing firms and to all investors, both domestic and foreign-owned. And that's how we're going to ensure the future of the 190,000 manufacturing jobs in Scotland and the 2.7 million across the UK. And we'll continue to support UK manufacturing capability in its transition to net zero through significant investment in research, development and innovation, so that it's globally competitive and can continue to provide the products demanded across the world and the jobs that are so important to local communities. The Prime Minister's 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution mobilises more than £12 billion to create over 250,000 high-skilled jobs across the UK. Scotland and other industrial heartlands are central to this blueprint for building industries of the future and decarbonising existing ones. Scotland's clean energy and high-tech manufacturing capability, together with Glasgow's aspirations to be a net zero city, make it an obvious place for hosting COP26 later on this year. And that's going to showcase the city's sustainable industrial credentials. The Offshore Wind Manufacturing Investment Fund, for example, will have particularly strong benefits in Scotland, And due to geographical factors, we expect much of UK's future floating wind deployment to be in Scotland, Scottish and Welsh waters. There's significant growth potential there, and that could ultimately deliver new and disruptive local supply chain content to support the future floating offshore wind projects in Scotland. That could lead to the creation of new high-value jobs in a sustainable growth industry. I want to assure the honourable member that my officials are in regular dialogue with the officials in the Scottish Government and with colleagues in Scottish Enterprise, and we will continue to work with them, not only to support the Scottish Government's efforts to help those affected, but to support the broader manufacturing industry and economy in Scotland. Because as we build back from this pandemic, we should more than ever be pulling together to strengthen our United Kingdom, learning from one another to try and achieve the best outcomes for our great nation. We'll continue to deliver for people across Scotland as part of a strong United Kingdom. And I don't say that as a partisan point because I know political differences. I just think when we look at, as I say, the human cost at the beginning of this, it's so important that we realise that we are a collection of communities as well as nations together. So the UK Internal Market Act 2020 provides the opportunity for the UK government to complement and strengthen the support that's already given to citizens, businesses and communities across Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales. For the first time in decades, we're going to be able to provide direct financial support to regenerate town centres and high streets together, improving local transport links and infrastructure together, and invest in cultural, sporting and economic development that can level up the whole of the UK. We're going to boost funding for communities with a £4.8 billion levelling up fund to support local infrastructure and £220 million to invest in local areas ahead of launching the UK Shared Prosperity Fund in 2022. And that's in addition to the £1 billion Glasgow City deal that supports tens of thousands of new jobs through infrastructure, but also through innovative industries, including high-tech manufacturing, life sciences and advanced design. Scotland will clearly continue to benefit from our £352 billion package of COVID-19 support, which has protected 1 in 3 Scottish jobs. But Glasgow and East Kilbride will benefit from new jobs and investment from the government, with the Cabinet Office and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office moving hundreds of civil service roles to Scotland. That's going to create new opportunities for brilliant Scottish public servants to join UK efforts in tackling joint domestic and international challenges. We'll continue to work for every citizen, every community and every business and across Britain to improve the quality of life and access to opportunity by harnessing local economic strengths. So I know, bringing back to the Tollcross site, I know that this will be a deeply worrying time for the workers and families affected by the recent announcement from PADIS on the 17th of June to issue the HR1 redundancy notice. We've got to work together to do everything that we can to ensure a bright future for these workers, and that their skills can continue to be used to benefit the local economy in Glasgow and more widely. I join with the Honourable Member to encourage PADIS to work in a responsible and compassionate way with their employees. My ministerial colleagues and officials stand ready to work with the Scottish Government and the Honourable Member to do all we can to assist the employees affected so they have access to all available support. We must work together to make sure that manufacturing continues to grow and provide skilled, well-paid jobs in Glasgow and Scotland. The proud history of Glasgow's manufacturing sectors, together with its achievements in sustainability and aspirations to be the UK's first zero-carbon city, provide a firm and enduring foundation for future jobs and great opportunities. Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.